Dr. Inia Raumati, the Ultramarathon doctor. Welcome to my podcast.
Kia ora. Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Mate, I'm so pleased that we finally connected and made this happen. 2024, insane year for you.
Yeah, pretty nuts actually, really. I didn't think it was going to be that crazy, but I probably didn't factor in all the travel time and recovery time and stuff, but yeah, it's pretty nuts.
Yeah, explain what you're doing.
So I'm trying to run a self-supported multi-stage ultramarathon on every continent, and I just took the piss a little bit and said, New Zealand's its own continent, so I started there. So about halfway through now, well, I am halfway through, done 4 so far.
Yeah, and for the uninitiated, what are these races?
Yeah, so typically they're on the same format as, I guess, the Marathon des Sables was the big one. So for 7 days, typically 6 running stages, you carry all your own gear while you run as well. So everything you need to eat and look after yourself for that 7 days. And typically the organisers just provide you with a tent or something equivalent to sleep under and a water allowance each day. So you're running with about a 10 to 11 kg pack at the start, and you just eat your way through it. Right,
and no, the sleeping bag, does that stay in the tent?
Everything right. Stays with you. So they just give you a shelter to sleep under. If you're lucky, it's a tent. In some races, I've had to carry my own hammock and that. And you run about a marathon a day, and then they'll have a long stage where you do about a double, do about something around 80 k's or more.
And because you're carrying your food that you eat, I suppose the one good thing is the pack gets lighter and lighter as you get on. But just the logistics of each of these races, you must have it down pat now in terms of what to take. But what are you eating? Is it like Radix meals or?
Yeah, so pretty much, dehydrated meals makes up a lot of it because obviously it's just lightweight. And then I usually take, there's a couple of New Zealand companies of stuff that I use, like Real Meals, Manuka Performance, Currans, and then typically I take a backup of 2-minute noodles. Because I found that if my gut's shut down, like if it's really, really hot, I can still for some reason eat just cheap old 2-minute noodles.
They're very light as well.
They're very light. You can squash the packet down to a really quite a small size, and so you can fit a lot of 2-minute noodles in your pack.
Mm. And you need to carry emergency gear or anything like that?
There's always a compulsory kit of gear. Like sometimes they make you carry a GPS tracker, but there's always like emergency survival gear, compasses, all that sort of stuff as well. And they'll typically have a set clothing as well in terms of warm kit. Because otherwise, runners being runners, you'd just take like one set of undies and one set of shorts and that'd be it, Unless they said, hey, you need 2 pairs of socks, you just take one and just rough it, which is generally what I try to do.
Yeah, why? You're going to be, if you manage to get this done, which at the time we're recording this, it's July, and you're halfway through and you are on track, you'll be the first person in the world?
Yep. So no one else has done it. There's been a few people that have said they've run a self-supported race on every continent. Most of them don't get to distinguish the idea that like New Zealand's not part of Australia, so they bugger it up that way. And none of them have done it in a year. They've always done like 2 to 3 years. I think 2 years might be the shortest so far.
Yeah. So where did the year run us through the year and the itinerary?
So it started off in I think it was March with the Southern Lakes down south. And then it went over to Namibia about 5 weeks after that. Then it was a reasonably short turnaround. I went off to the Jungle Ultra in Peru, and then 2 weeks after that I was off in Mongolia, and I got back from Mongolia about 2 weeks ago, and then I'm off to Romania in about another 2 weeks.
Oh my God. I follow you on Instagram. Ultramarathon Doctor is your handle, and I'm in awe of what you do. But these trips, you're not fucking around, You're on the plane, you're over there, you do the event, and then you're basically straight back on the plane back home. Yeah,
I try to at least have maybe 1 day or 2 days or something that I can at least see the local sites, because it seems a bit of a waste otherwise. But it all really comes down to work and leave. I've used up all my annual leave and leave that I had stored up when you couldn't go away over the COVID period. And then to get out of some shifts, I've just swapped with other people at work. So if I've got a little bit of extra time, I'll try to stay. But most of the times, it's literally run the race. The next day, you're on the plane and you're making your way back.
And you're flying business class, of course, because you're an emergency doctor.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever flown business. I think the only time I ever flew business class was with the military. Every time it's just like the cheapest cattle class down the back with,
like Southern China Airlines or Malaysian Airlines, just whatever's.
Yeah, whatever's going. And
the dirtier the better.
11 to 17-hour flights sitting in the back, and when you're sore after a race and there's not much leg room, it's lucky I'm a short fella. If I had long legs like you, I'd be buggered. You'd be...
What is wrong with how you're wired? You just love doing hard stuff, eh? The harder the better.
No, I just reckon I'm old and slow. Like, I tried doing marathons like about 10 years ago, and I just feel like the fastest I could ever get, I think, was like 3 hours 35 or something, and I was never going to get it quicker because I'm just, not built for it.
Built for comfort.
Yeah. What do they say? A bit more of a diesel engine than a petrol. So I find I can go long distances and through like quite hard conditions, and it doesn't bother me too much. In fact, I enjoy it, and I just can't do that fast stuff. So older and slower. And
if you look at your results, you seem to get better in these events as the time goes on. Like a lot of your finishes, you're sort of the pointy end of the field. You're up near the top 10.
Yeah, I'm usually getting in there, and a bit of it's like experience. Like generally, I do get a bit better. Like my body sort of warms into it and thinks, "Oh, you stupid shit, you're doing this again." So it sort of just goes into that sort of mode. And a bit of it is like you warn especially the young competitors and new ones, like don't go out like the clappers in the first couple of days, and none of them listen. So typically you'll go up the pack because you're maybe getting a bit quicker, and a lot of them have like burnt themselves and are dropping out or are dropping back in the pack. So yeah, usually start out pretty slow and get better, especially on the long day is typically when I sort of hit my strides.
Do you still get nervous before these events or anxious with the pain that's ahead, or have you done so many now that you sort of just know what to expect?
I get more nervous with the travel. I hate travel. I hate airports. I hate transfers. I'm always worried that my kit's not going to show up or something like that. But once the race starts, now I'm pretty comfortable with it. Yeah,
could you not just take your like essential kit for the run as carry-on?
Yeah, I do try to fit as much as you can in your carry-on, like in your race pack. The only downside is a couple of times you've shown up, they've lost your bag and you've lost all your race food and stuff. And some of the places you go, you can't get like dehydrated food. You'll be eating whatever the locals eat, or
it's very niche, isn't it?
Yeah, it was very niche. You'll be getting sick, But
yeah. And what about the scholarship? This is part of your big goal for this year. And just before coming on today, I looked at the Give a Little page, and it's a lot less than what it should be at this stage of the year. Hopefully, after a little push on the podcast, we can get a few more dollars in there. But this is really noble of you, the scholarship idea.
Yes, I think it just came to the part of my life where I'm sort of a bit more comfortable with work and where I am, and I've really wanted just to sort of give back a little bit, but give other people opportunities to do things. And so we started up this scholarship, myself and Vicky, my partner, called Kia Mau Kia Ora, and we're just looking at getting final year or close to final year students at school who possibly haven't had the opportunity to express themselves or show what they're worth, the opportunity to develop in that through running ultramarathons. So we will fund them, look after them, train them, and sort of mentor them, and hopefully not only get them to do something like this, but to help develop them further to go off and pursue whatever they want. Because I found when I was growing up, I was lucky I had a supportive family, but school wasn't that supportive, and people were quite negative to you when you're a student, and sometimes when you're young, that's quite it's quite bad for the rest of your life.
That's detrimental, yeah.
Yeah, you sort of start putting yourself in a little box of what you think you can do.
Well, if you hear something often enough, you start to believe it, don't you?
Yeah, so if your teacher or somebody in your life just keeps on telling you you're worthless and you can't do things, then you'll put yourself in that box that you can't. Whereas everyone you're taught to that's done like a multi-stage race, wherever they've come from, and people come from pretty diverse backgrounds, the one thing they find out about themselves at the end is shit, I've just achieved something I never thought I could do in my life. And a lot of them go on to change other aspects of their lives as well. I've done it since I've started running. And I think if you can get younger people to break out of that sort of self-imposed or society imposed restrictions at a young age, then it'll change their direction for their lives. And that's what we're aiming to do.
Oh, that's so cool. God, there's so many directions to go in just from that one answer. It might stick on the running and poke around that for a while, and then get into your childhood, your early years, and then your job and just how you fit everything in. Yeah. It's you and I are about the same age. I feel like a sack of shit. Like, I think about what I've done over the last 20 years, and oh my God, I feel lazy. It's crazy what you're doing, bro.
Yeah.
You just like it's like you're just like squeezing everything out of life.
Well, I'm trying to now. I think like I said, coming out of school, I probably wasted a lot of years because I just didn't think I could do a lot of stuff. Sorry, like when I was at school, my exit interview with the headmaster was like, stay out of jail, and I was just like, that's pretty wretched thing to say to a young person.
Were you a bad kid?
No, I don't think so. Like I was in the top academic stream at school. I played for some of the top sports teams at school. I just probably suffered a lot from, being harassed for being a Māori kid at mostly Pākehā school, I suppose, back in those days. But and that would get turned, to arguments and violence and other stuff. But I don't think I was a bad kid.
Why would a principal say that? Do you think that was some casual racism as well?
Yeah, possibly.
That's a terrible thing to say.
It's a bit of a terrible thing to say.
I can understand if you were sitting in a chair in the dean's office every fucking day, but if you're a good kid, that's an appalling thing to say.
Yeah, I just don't think that anyone really understood like what you were going through back in those days. I mean, it's a bit different now, I guess, with the days of smartphones and media and people videoing things and people, all those sort of aspects of stuff. Whereas back in the old days, I think there's a lot of stuff that sort of slipped under the radar in terms of, when we were at school, what kids would do to each other or sort of, the harassment and stuff that was going on. Mm. And I think obviously being young and dumb and not a fully developed brain back then, you did deal with things probably a little bit differently than you would now.
Mm. Yeah, I've heard that this is I suppose during secondary school, this is where you sort of gravitated towards running just to sort of regulate your emotions or let off a bit of steam, however you want to phrase it. Yeah,
well, I used to go out and run just when I felt like I needed to burn off some energy and stuff like that, rather than getting in a fight or getting in a confrontation with people. And the school caught me doing it, and then they basically just said you're allowed to do it. So the chaplain at the time would sort of supervise things, and if I needed to, you go talk to him. But I was pretty much allowed to go out for a run after hours because they knew I was just going for a run whenever I sort of really felt like it. And that's probably how I sort of got into running back in the day. It was just burning off all that sort of excess energy. And
what sort of distances?
I never
like
really
a 10K
knew.
run or?
I think I'm actually looking back at the loop that I used to run around school. I think it was around about 7 or 8 Ks. I sort of had this loop that I'd just go out and blast through. And then sometimes there'd be proper runners from the running club at school, and you
Harriers.
Yeah, you try to hold on with them when they went for the sort of longer stuff, like the 10 to 15 in the weekends. You'd hold on to about the last couple of Ks, and then they'll just drop you in the bed. Yeah.
So for these desert ultras, what sort of training goes into it, and how do you fit it in with all your work?
Well, that's the thing. I can't fit in as much as I really want to, I guess, with work and timetable, but I did most of it last year. So I put a year of distance running in when I could. Like if you got a weekend off, I'd do sort of back-to-back mid to longest runs in the bush.
What's that, like 4 hours?
Yeah, so anything depending on how rough the terrain was, from 20 to 40 Ks, and do back-to-back. And then maybe I'd get one sort of shorter run with a run club in during the week. But I spent a lot of time at the gym, just putting on weight and trying to put a bit of muscle back on in your old age. Because the one thing that happens with these events is regardless of how much you eat or how fit you are, you can't eat enough. So your body just chews through your own muscle stores for energy. So if you haven't put on some weight, then there's no way you'd get through the aim of getting through 8 races in a year. I mean, I've dropped 10 kilograms this year already from putting on weight on purpose.
Is that right?
Yeah, so I started off the year at 87. I came back from the last race, to be fair, dehydrated, so 75, back up to 77 a couple of days later. And then thanks to the in-laws, I managed to pig myself back up to about 80 within a week and a half.
I'm still fixated on your training schedule. So you don't have a coach or anything?
No, I don't.
You just sort of run as you can.
Yeah, I've tried having a coach before, and they just wrote these ridiculous things that you'd have to do for what they said to be able to do ultramarathons, but I could never fit it in with work, so I just stopped paying a coach and just run how I feel, really.
So the longest, what would your longest week be, like 50, 60K?
Or when I'm not racing. Yeah, probably. You'd be lucky to get 50, 60K. Yeah, you'd be lucky. I never get up to 100K a week, never.
No one would advise that, right?
No. I mean, I see people coming into the races and they sort of like advertise their running scheme, what they've been doing on
Strava?
And the race Facebook pages and stuff, and they'll be like, I've been running 100K weeks with a pack on and stuff. You're like, shit, this guy's going to take it out. And you get there and they don't. But it's just, they're doing way more training. But
that's so it's just like mental toughness and resilience in a way. You're just getting through on just like grit.
In a way, there's experience, like there's what to know and what to expect. Like that's a huge aspect, like having your kit and everything down packed. A lot of people pull out for like a few reasons. Like true injuries are rare. Most people will pull out for blisters, rashes, or their bowels give up and they shit themselves or something stupid like that. And those are the most common things. But with experience, how to keep your bowels good, how to prevent blisters, how to prevent rash, all those sort of things, and muscle aches that people complain about. You learn that with experience. And then the other side of it is just that mental aspect a bit. Like you've done it before, your brain knows that your body's done it before, and it sort of accepts that level of pain and discomfort. Whereas some other people, if they've never done it before, they'll be like, shit, I'm sore and I'm in pain, I'm going to stop. Whereas for a lot of us, that's just part of it. And your body knows it's just part of it. So you just get on with it.
Yeah, it's like messaging from your brain, telling you that you should give up because you're in danger when really you're not.
Yeah, and that's when people have never pushed their limits in life, If you've never pushed yourself to your limit, you don't realise that it's actually not your true limit.
Do you think you've come close to pushing yourself to your limits?
Yeah, I have come in one race. I was probably close to blacking out or passing out. That's probably, like I got that classic when you look back at it, when your vision starts to narrow, your hearing's still pretty good, and I was sort of like, I just pushed through this aid station. I just lied to these people. They, I knew they were going to pull me if they knew how bad I was. I just said, sweet, good, just kept on going. Had about 10 or so Ks to go. Vision started going, started wobbling around the place, but made it through the end.
Well, was it what time of day was it? Was it like dusk or was it just like temporary?
It was coming into dark, yeah. So it was a long day stage and it was in a race in China. Yeah.
But was it like temporary blindness though?
Didn't go completely blind, got pretty close.
You're a doctor. What would you tell your patient?
Oh, you'd be right. It's called temporary blindness for a reason. Yeah, it's only temporary.
You'll be right. Oh, jeez.
No, I wouldn't do what I do at times, but it all depends on how much you want it, what you're prepared to put up with, or the risk you're prepared to take. But that was probably cutting it a bit fine.
Yeah. Have you ever had a DNF?
In any of these races? No. Touch wood? No.
Wow. What are the worst injuries? Oh, and what does it do to your body afterwards? Like when you're flying back home, are you pissing blood or anything, or?
No, I have had a little bit of blood in my pee once or twice, but that's usually just normal. I mean, it sounds funny. It's normal traumatics type. It's just from breaking up your red blood cells quite often. People from heel striking or your feet and other bits and pieces. It's not that uncommon, but as long as you rehydrate, you're usually okay. Typically when I finish, you're sort of on that sort of runner's high for about a week or so. And like I said, I just did 2 races and they're only 2 weeks apart. And I felt sort of high and good sort of most of the time between. And it wasn't till like I'd been back in New Zealand for a week and a half and your body starts to relax that everything starts to hurt. Your body goes from that sort of, I guess, that fun survival high mode just to recovery mode. And it's just like, yep, now you're going to pay for it. So I've been pretty sore for the past week.
Have you really?
Yeah. Waking up in the mornings pretty stiff and pretty sore. Trying to catch up with mates at run clubs and stuff, and you'll be doing like a 5 to a 10K run, and afterwards you're like, you're a little bit of a cripple. Yeah.
Shit. Yeah. I mean, you're only doing this as a 1 year thing, like a special thing, all the continents in 1 year. But it's probably not advisable, eh?
Oh, I don't know. If you really want to do it, why not?
Yeah, for sure.
People do crazier things in their lives. I think I would advise people to probably be a bit more prepared than I am.
Like in terms of the training, or?
Yeah, because it's hard. You've got to balance your life.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always told people, I could be a better runner or better at these things if I didn't have to work. But then I could probably be a better doctor in terms of, being well-read and maybe a little bit more knowledgeable if I didn't spend my other time doing these things. It's a life balance,
Yeah, you just seem like a dude that wants to do everything.
Yeah, before I get much older. While you can do it, do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, it's worth pointing out, in 2014 you were the first, and I believe to this point still the only Kiwi to complete the 4 Desert Grand Slam.
Yeah, so...
Has anyone else done it or no?
Yeah, there's a couple other Kiwis who have done the 4 deserts, but all the races, but it's taken them a few years. So to do the Grand Slam, you've got to do it in 1 year. So far, even though I've been trying to get other people to do it, no one else has, bitten the bullet and done it yet. And part of that, I guess, is the time commitment to do it and the cost and stuff as well. I'd love to see somebody else do it and do it a hell of a lot quicker than me.
Yeah. Your partner, fiance?
Yep, fiance,
Vicky, she's sitting in the room. I know her very well. Like she's Kanye's vet. He hates her, but she's wonderful. She's on board with all this. She was like working as your PA, teeing up this podcast chat. She does your social media. She helps the logistics of the travel.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
How did you find a unicorn?
So I found her. Well, I was looking for a dog. Like I finally got my own place, and I was moved out to Kiwi, and I thought, it's time to get a dog. I was looking for a dog, and I ended up getting a dog and a vet, so it's great. So 2 dogs and a vet now, which does help. But she helps in most of the social media stuff because I'm just old, and a smartphone to me is like a bit of magic technology. So I struggle with that stuff. But yeah, it's good to have someone on board that can do all that logistics stuff because, like I say, I hate travelling. So I like it when she comes on the trips. You can just be that, what do they call it, that travel princess where you just hand over all your stuff and just show up and, in the background just follow along.
Yeah, it's like being a rock star, isn't it?
Yeah.
Someone else organising what gate you have to be at. Yeah, because some of those flights, like to get to, what's involved in getting to say, I don't know, what's the most far-flung place? Would it be Namibia or somewhere else?
Namibia was the worst one.
Yeah.
I think it was probably because we tried to go super budget because everything's been pretty hard on the old pocket. So we took a flight from like Auckland to Dubai, which was like 17-hour one plane. And then I had to have like a layover for a night in Dubai, flew another 10 hours down to Johannesburg, and then had another overnight, and then another 4 or 5 hours or whatever it was to Namibia. I was literally spent more time travelling than I actually spent physically running in that race. So that was pretty horrible. But it was cheaper than flying like to Australia and then across.
Yeah.
Although next time I'd probably pay the money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is like super inspiring and invigorating because I think first of all, most people would never attempt one of these runs at all, not even as a bucket list thing. But for anyone that was interested in it, I think one of the things that would put them off would be just the amount of like pre-work involved. But you go to show that if you've got mental toughness, you can get by on just 3 runs a week.
Well, I've also said to people, like, so there's the rule of tens, if you can run a kilometre easy, like completely pain-free, no niggles, whatever, you could run 10Ks. You could do a 10K race, couldn't you? It's the same with this. If you can run 10Ks completely pain-free and comfortably, you can run a 100K race. You're just not going to enjoy it, but you can do it if you put your mind to it. And it's the same with these, a lot of people, they can go out and they can run a marathon. You can do one of these. You just got to adjust your sort of set of what you think your performance is going to be like each day and enjoy the fact that, like, at the end of it, you're not going to have a hot shower and a foot rub and a nice feed and that. You just got to get up and do it again the next day. Yeah,
I reckon that's the thing that puts me off. Just you're finishing a long run and just like then being in a tent and then doing it all over again.
Yep, in the same clothes for 7 days, yeah.
Yeah, that's grim. I feel like you froth on that though, eh? You love it.
I love that side of it. I've always liked that side of it though. Like I loved the tramping and stuff at school, and I loved the stuff even when you got in with the military as a doctor. I hated being a doctor in the military, but I loved all that outdoors stuff. You know, it's just great. I love that, like living rough and
just like a little kid that hates showers.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, don't want to have a shower. You know, the colder, the wetter, the dirtier, the better. It's all good fun when you work in a hospital or an office. You know.
Yeah. And what have these runs told you about resilience that and mental toughness that you can transfer and use in day-to-day life, if anything?
Yeah, I think the main thing that it's taught me is, like I was saying before, is a lot of people have these preperceived limits of what you can achieve. And literally, if you give something like this a go, and you'll find that if you really want it, you can stick through it, and you can do it, and you can that builds up that sort of mental toughness. It just shows you that, hey, other things in life that you think are a little bit difficult really aren't that difficult, because you've done harder stuff in your life. You know, you can just push through if you really want to. To a limit. To a certain limit.
To a limit. We just haven't found your limit yet.
Yeah, not yet. I've been close. I was hoping there's a few things that would make me find my limit, but there's a lot tougher races out there as well in the end of the day. I mean, I'm doing a lot this year, and there's always the risk that one of these will break me, which will be, I suppose, bad for what I'm trying to achieve, but will be quite enjoyable to find out.
What's that one?
Well, if something goes wrong this year and I can't finish, that'll be, bad on one side, good on the other side, because you've found something. But there's all those massive races up in Alaska and the Arctic Circle where they pull sleds and pucks for 500 to 1,000 k's and all that sort of stuff.
I've heard about them. Yeah, and you've got to poo in a bag and take your feces away with you.
Yeah, I mean, pooing in a bag's not a big deal. I had to do it.
Yeah, on your social media, there's a lot of poo chat, a ton of poo chat.
It's funny because I think it's one thing that people overlook and they get surprised when they come in these races is the pooing aspect. And it's also a lot of things that people enjoy. Everybody likes talking about a good shit or more likely a bad shit,
Well, no, so I find some people are really quite sort of prudish about it. Like some people will find it really off-putting that we're talking about it here, but it's like, fuck, everyone does it. Yeah. It is the most natural bodily function imaginable.
Well, there's nothing worse than showing up to a race like the one we just did in Mongolia and finding that literally somebody digs like a little trench in the ground. You've got to, squat on planks either side where there's literally just sort of like a Hessian sack curtain up to about your shoulder height. So you can see the person next door. And they find out that that's the toilet for the week, and they're already there and they're looking at you, but it's like, yep, get used to it.
How good. Yeah, we're about the same age, and there was, when we were in our 20s, there were no events like this, It's just amazing, the explosion. I think back then there was probably like marathons were as far as it went, and then sort of ultras came along, and now there's backyard ultras, and these desert stage races, whatever you can think of, really, there's an event for it these days. Yeah,
it's definitely a huge explosion in the past, 10, 20 years, and I think it's probably just that, people have found that organise these events, that there's a lot of people out there that really want to push themselves a bit. And you find the average age or the most competitive age group is usually that 40 to 50 sort of age group. And it's probably because it's our generational, that have maybe now achieved that sort of level of life where they can afford to do these things. But they're also wanting to find out, where they're at or push their limits and...
Yeah, there's probably a number of reasons for that. Eh? Maybe it's almost like a midlife crisis aspect as well, where you realise that time is finite and you're not getting any younger, and your physical capacity to do these things might not last forever like you think it is in your 20s. I heard you on another podcast talking about type 2 fun.
Yeah, well, that's the sort of stuff I'm really into. So type 2 fun is stuff that you typically hate while you're doing it, but you look back and you really enjoy it. And that's sort of the stuff, that's the key, that's the stuff I like. When it starts slipping into type 3, that's generally when you hate it at the time and you still hate it afterwards.
Have you done any type 3?
I suppose there was some stuff that I did with the military that you hated at the time, and you look back at your time in Wairua and stuff and you still hate it now. You're not in a great hurry to go back and do that. But then again, occasionally it sort of slips in your memory back to type 2 and you'd probably give it a go again. Yeah,
I love that so much because I think life's got so comfortable these days. You're almost looking for ways to put yourself into some forced discomfort.
Yeah, so my job and stuff, physically, it's not taxing. Mentally, I suppose, and mentally fatiguing and all the rest of it, it's quite taxing. But physically on your body, it's quite soft. You get up every day, you have a cup of coffee, you're quite comfortable, you go to work, you go home. there's none of that sort of real big physical challenge. So, my body craves doing stuff like that, and I just got to go out and find it where I can. Yeah. If somebody rang up this evening and said, "Hey, bro, it's pissing down with rain. Let's go out and run over the night for 40 k's or something." Yeah, I'm tired and sore, but I'd probably say yes if they're keen. You got to give it a go.
Oh my God! By the way, I just want to pick on this before we move on. You mentioned your work's pretty easy and comfortable or whatever, but we will get to that. But I think a lot of people will disagree. Like you're an A&E doctor, which for most people is like anything but cruisy and relaxing, I guess.
Yeah, when I say comfortable, I mean like physically.
Yeah.
Like in terms of your stress levels and your mental, side of it, it's horrendous, to be honest. And I'm glad that hopefully I've only got about 15 more years before I retire, I think, isn't it? That's just not a positive way of looking at it.
Hey, by the way, this podcast is sponsored by Generate, the KiwiSaver scheme. Have you got your KiwiSaver sorted? I feel like you're not going to have much money when you retire.
I'm actually, I do have some KiwiSaver, and I'm lucky that I did all that sort of stuff really early on and just keep chipping in it. So I'm not saving any money doing what I'm doing.
Okay, I worry about you. You get to 65, like, I don't know where all the money went. I know exactly where it went. 6 overseas trips a year. Okay, let's go back to the real early years. So you're from Taranaki?
Yeah, so I'm from Taranaki, but never really lived there. Went back and worked there when I was a doctor for a couple of years, but we moved around a lot. So Dad worked for the Anglican Māori mission. So I counted back when I was 16, I'd lived in 13 different places. So we were just pretty much put in boarding schools to keep the education consistent.
Right. Yeah. What was it, like a minister or something?
Yeah, Anglican minister for the Māori mission. So we just moved a lot. Yeah. So sometimes you'd go to boarding school, you'd leave from one place, you'd finish your semester, come out, and you'd move, and you were somewhere else.
Fuck, that's tough.
Yeah, I actually preferred to stay at school. I mean, it sounds rough. It's not because I didn't want to go home. It was just because
the consistency. Yeah,
and you had mates at school.
Yeah,
or you had people that you could go out and you could do sports, or you could go running, or you could do whatever. You go home on the holidays, you knew no one. And you might be in some really sort of either rough places or shitty little places around New Zealand where, unless you knew someone, there's not much to do. So
yeah, and when you reflect back on that now, well, like, what do you think?
It is what it is. Dad was away a lot, and he did a lot of things for the Māori mission. That was his job, and I can understand that. But I don't think it's something that I'd do with my kids when we have some. Yeah, it was a bit difficult, but we were just, I guess, just accepted that was part of it.
Yeah, they both passed now. Your parents, Tiki and Wilma, right?
Yeah, Tiki and Wilma. Dad passed away about 4 or 5 years ago. Mum's still alive. She's living down on the farm, quite sort of stoically independent. Refuses to come up to Auckland or to go into sort of any care facility. She just likes staying on the farm with her dogs.
How old is she? Like late 70s?
Oh, no, she's like 81 now, I think.
Amazing.
Oh, no, actually 80... Oh, God, I'm going to get it wrong. Don't listen to this, Mum. Somewhere in the 80s.
And what were your biggest lessons from them? Like, mottos that you live by or anything like that?
I think it was just like, it always seemed like hard work was just what was expected, we didn't, we lived a pretty, stoically sort of, tough life, I guess. We didn't have a lot. We had what we needed, but you didn't have a lot. There wasn't a lot of put it this way, we weren't well off. But we weren't, I wouldn't say we were poor. We just, just made use of what you had. And the old man was always a hard worker. Even just being a minister, he's always still a very physical person and did a lot of stuff for himself, so it was just part of, cracking on and getting things done. Yeah,
and he died of pancreatic cancer in 2018?
Yeah, so it was one of those things that I look back at it, still a little bit disappointed. I was quite busy with work at the time and trying to help set up some other policies and Māori health policies for the emergency college and things, and I didn't realise Dad was getting sick, and back in, he still wouldn't complain about things when he was old, and no one in the family sort of let you know. And I came back home and I saw him, and I hadn't seen him for about 6 months, and he'd lost a lot of weight. I was like, shit, this ain't right. And members of the extended family sort of been hiding a few things, and it just turned out, like I suppose a lot of Māori fellas from his generation, they think it was pancreatic cancer. At the time he got found, there was other stuff probably in his bowel and things, and there was just nothing you could do about it. So we just took him home.
You, by the sound of things, you guys had a really good relationship. Like he was your support crew in some of these runs early on.
Yes, we had. I guess we started to reconnect with running later on in life because Dad working so much when we were younger, and then after that university period, and sort of moving back to Taranaki, I started running again, and Dad started coming along to events, and he was my support crew for ultramarathons when I first started. Like 100k events and things. Worst support crew in the world. But he used to come along, Well, he was always keen to come along because he got off the farm and without mum there, he could eat whatever he wanted to. Because, he had diabetes and gout and heart disease and old age and wasn't allowed, bad food. But he'd come along and he'd like, hey, should we have a pizza? Yeah. So before every race, we used to have a pizza and a beer, neither of which he's allowed. And then during the events, he'd just help himself to the aid stations, the
snake lollies and the Coke. And
he'd be like, "Oh, have you seen all these things you get?" And he'd be eating them, and I was like, "Dad, that's for the runners. That's for you're not running." He's like, "Oh, they won't miss a few." So he just helped himself. But if you came to an aid station, who's supposed to be there, and you wanted something, he'd never be there. He'd be off having a feed or talking to someone. Yeah, so not the most reliable, but he enjoyed it, and I enjoyed having him along. It was good fun.
Well, and you must have had a really good relationship by the time his life came to an end, because you even stopped running for a while after that.
Yeah, it did hit pretty hard, I'll admit, and I think part of it was I felt that I'd let the family down, let Dad down a bit because I hadn't sort of picked up on him being unwell earlier. You're the doctor in the family, and you sort of feel that that's your sort of role. And then by the time I realised what was going on, and you get him in to see the medical system, and then you look back for his notes and you see how the medical system has actually probably let him down a little bit because they should have been picking up on tests and stuff earlier. Then you feel bad from that side of it, and because
like an element of guilt in a way.
Yeah, element of guilt, and then. And we used to go to the running vets, that was what we did, we'd catch up and, I'd take him away to these events and we'd hang out and do this sort of stuff. So when the old man passed away, I wasn't really interested in going out and running, and I was running with some of the guys from Dirt Church at the time and stuff, and I tried to go for runs, and you didn't want to talk to people, you didn't want to, so I just stopped running actually for quite a long time altogether. Yeah,
because I found this photo online of him. He looks like a fun dude.
Yeah.
He looks. It's quite funny because look at that photo and the man that you described just a second ago. I can see it. He seems like very cheeky, very charming, very charismatic.
He was a very cheeky fella. He did like to rack people up a little bit. It was a great pastime of his. It was always in a good natured sort of way, but he was always good for a bit of a laugh. You had to take the old man with a grain of salt. Most people that know him would comment on that. Yeah.
Can you remember your last conversation?
Probably not really. Towards the end, there was a lot of drugs and other stuff going on board. So yeah, I think he was still trying to pass on, as that generation would do, like knowledge and stuff. All through the, he knew things were coming to an end, and he was just wanting to pass on history and knowledge and stuff.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that stuff.
No worries.
You got back into the running with more enthusiasm than previously, didn't you? You've done a hell of a lot since then.
Yeah, so I did. I've been thinking about doing this thing that I'm doing this year for quite some time, and then I just only really, I suppose, got the kick from Vicky to crack on and do it.
Really? What did she say?
Well, because you can only attempt this every 2 years, because there's only a race down in Antarctica every 2 years. So you've got to, if I didn't do it this year, it'd be another 2 years. And if I didn't, and I've been talking about doing it, and I've been talking about doing the scholarship and spending more time with like young students and stuff coming through and trying to encourage people and things. She's just like, well, you're not getting any younger, so you may as well get into it now. I guess. Yeah, well, that's what you get when you get an Asian partner, isn't it?
Yeah, but physically, like you've got the capability. I think. I mean, no one knows what the future holds, but I'd suggest like looking at you now physically, like you'll be doing this in 10 years' time. Why not?
Well, I hope so. Like I just think like every 10 years, I usually try to do something. Like I did that Grand Slam when I was turning 40. I'm doing this one turning 50. just trying to think of now what I'm going to do when I turn 60. But you see people in these events who are in the 60s, and there's even the last one, there was a lady in her 70s from the States who finished, you know. So, I mean, shit, that's inspirational. If they can do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Well, the fact that you're doing this stuff now with the bare minimal training imaginable, like a dangerously low level of training, and you imagine when you're retired, if you've got a bit more time to train.
Yeah. Well, the way I look at it, as long as you start these things injury-free or relatively injury-free, it's always a good start. You'll run yourself fit after time. You know?
Yeah, do you find that? You find you get better and fitter as you go along in these events?
Yeah, to a certain degree, yeah. If you're doing like 1 or 2 a year, I think you'll find yourself getting fitter. Obviously, if you're doing a lot, then there'll just be that cumulative sort of muscle fatigue, and you won't be getting fitter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Your brain might be getting a bit fitter, but your body generally won't until you have a decent rest.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you finish up at school, you're a smart student, but then the principal says for your future, just stay out of jail. So incredibly low expectations. Then you go to Otago and study physio.
Yeah, so I went to university probably because everybody else was, and I didn't know what to do with myself. So the other guys that I knew were going down to university, and my brother was at Otago, and he'd gone to university, and my sister had gone to Otago University, so I thought, that's what you did when you leave school. I'll just go to university.
It did, at that time, Otago felt like a rite of passage, didn't it?
Yeah, and you'd never been down south, so it was like it was almost like going to another country, you know. So I went down, and it was probably a bad move. I mean, I wasn't set up to study, I think, and just basically...
What, just age and stage in life, or...?
Yeah. Looking back, I probably would have been better to take a year off and work or something, or do something else first, rather than just follow the crowd and go down. I mean, I got into physiotherapy. I didn't even know what physios did. Like, I thought it was just the guy or girl that ran onto the rugby field, you know, during the footy. I was like, that looks like a sweet job. I'll just do that. And you get down there and you find out there's all this, they're teaching you all this stuff in hospital about working with stroke patients and doing all this stuff. I was like, well, that's not what I signed up for.
Just rehab.
Yeah, so the rehab stuff, I was like, oh, geez, I didn't really sign up for that.
So how long do you study to become a physio?
A year more than I should have. Yeah, so 5 years it took me. It's supposed to be 4 years. It took me 5. Yeah.
Oh, my God, that's such a long chunk of your life. So then you complete that and you work as a physio for...
Yeah, I went for a physio
or?
for about 6 months. That was probably the worst physio ever. No, well, it wasn't the worst physio ever. I'm sure there's somebody out there worse than me. I just really wasn't into it. Like, I got a job at a private physio clinic. Physio pay back then was really shit. And we're just seeing, like, you know, sweaty sports people's ankles and other stuff and just common injuries throughout the thing. And decided this wasn't for me. So was just mentioning it to the old man, and somehow I'd mentioned medical school and what the med students look like, and they seem to always have the better clothes and the better food and better off. And he said, well, go back to medical school. And it was always him that sort of makes stuff snowball, and it just snowballed after that.
So he planted the seed. Yeah, cause you got some there's some like medical history in the family, eh? Like doctors from previous generations.
So all the first doctors come from Taranaki. The first Māori doctor to train overseas, the first Māori doctor to train in New Zealand, they all come from, you know, Te Atiawa down in Taranaki. So, and I didn't know any of this when I was applying for medical school. You know, I'd never looked into it, never thought about it. You know, so he was actually quite keen for me to go to medical school.
Yeah, as someone that didn't go to university, like I'm just thinking about the physio thing, like studying for 5 years and then having a job and realising it's not for you. Would there be a lot of people that feel that way and they just stick with it because they're like, fuck, I've done the work, this is my lot?
Yeah, even when I got out of medical school, like the stats for medical school are quite interesting. Like, you know, I don't know how many they're putting out now, but I think it was like, you know, they took 120 back in when I was in. Maybe 105 or something would finish. A large percentage of those, relatively, would either never work as a doctor. They just wanted to finish, so they got their degree and they'd go off and do other things. Or they wouldn't work in clinical medicine, they'd go and work into some branch of medical IT. Or they'd just leave and go overseas. So it's just one of those things, I guess. I got towards the end of physio and I knew I didn't really want to do it. But it's like, you know, shit, you've invested, you know, 3 years of your life it seems a bit of a waste not to finish.
You're over halfway.
Yeah. So you just finish it, and you just hope that you never know, once you start working, you might enjoy it.
Yeah. So you apply for med school, then you don't get in straight away? You get in third?
I got turned down a bit. Yeah. I laugh about it now. I used to say, like, the most turned down person ever. I got turned down about 3 times before I finally got in.
So is there like an intake at the beginning of each year, or is it each term, or?
Yeah, it'd be the beginning of each year. So I applied for direct entry when I'd quit physio. And to be fair, they turned me down. I can understand. I mean, my physio grades were pretty rough.
C's get degrees, bro.
It was fully that. Like, I knew I wasn't.
That was the thing.
Yeah, I knew I didn't want to be a physio. I wasn't really interested in study. I just passed it, So I can understand they turned me down. And then I got told, hey, health science was coming, and do the first year health science degree, and then apply for second year medical school. And I approached the Māori and Pacific Island admission scheme at the time, and they said, hey, if you get the grades required, we'll take you. And I was like, okay. So I worked a couple of jobs part-time, did the first year, got the grades required, went back to them, and they said, oh, no, we're full. We've got the people we want for this year. Apply for the general admission scheme. So I applied for the general admission scheme as well after getting turned down by them, and then got turned down again. And I was sitting there going like, shit, what am I going to do now? I've just gone back to university for another year, spent another 15, 20 grand of studying, even though I was working. I'm piling up debt here. And luckily, about a week before the medical school started for second year, I got a phone call and a letter in the mail and got in. And it's still a bit suspect how that came about. I'm not too sure, actually. Whether it might have been... They say it was because I was like third on the waiting list and 3 people had deferred, which could be the truth, but it was also there was a Māori doctor in government at the time, working in the political circles, Dr. Tony Uruakere, who was quite upset that I hadn't got in and thought I was a bit hard done by. And I think he may have exerted some pressure as well. So I've always thanked him and assumed that he was part of it. But I really don't know how in the end. It may have been I was just on the waiting list. It's a big mystery.
Yeah, because you must have been, so say 100 medical students. How many Māori in the class?
Back then, there was a funny stat. There was more of us training to be doctors at medical school than there were actually doctors out back then. And that was in 2000 when we started.
Dr. Raupata from Shortland Street was the only,
only
Māori doctor.
You can imagine that being Raumati and Raupata so close. I had the Dr. Raupata jokes all the way through.
Did you lots of Guatemala jokes?
Yep. And even now, when you come and see some patient of that generation, it's like, fuck, here we go. I thought I got away from that. Here it comes.
Wait for it. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah. So, back in our class, I don't know, there was only about, I think there was about 20 Māori and Pacific Island students back then.
How many do you work with now in Auckland?
In Auckland, there's one other Māori doctor. He's a Cook Island Māori fella who works there as well. So there's 2 of us, and that's probably pretty high.
So underrepresented though, eh? What percentage of the patients would be Māori? Yeah,
so the emergency college just looked at these stats. We helped them set up their Māori health portfolio. So literally, depending on where you are in New Zealand, anywhere from 15 to 20% of your patients coming in would be Māori. So about 18% average. And the percentage of senior Māori doctors that they had in emergency was, I think it was less than 1% when they first looked at it, which was about 5 years ago.
Wow.
So they're trying to obviously encourage more trainees, more doctors to come in because they want to obviously balance up that representation. But to be fair, every specialty wants to balance up the representation of Māori doctors, and there's a lot better specialties to do than emergency.
So they've got a good Māori doctor, but he's never there. He's always off doing these.
Yeah, I'm always shooting off.
He works 3 days a year.
Yeah, they have to go visit that other one. Yeah.
Yeah. People often surprised when they see a Māori doctor.
Yeah. It's funny,
really?
There's different reactions in different age groups, I guess, Like you get the classic really old person, in their 80s or whatever that comes in, they go, it's, so polite. Oh, it's so lovely to see a Māori doctor, like some old European lady that's probably never seen one in her life. And it's quite funny. It cracks me up. It's just like, it's quite beautiful, very of us. It's like, oh, are you Māori? Really? It's like, yeah, there's Māori doctors now. You know. But they don't mean anything. They're just like, you know, lovely, and they're just like really happy to see you. To other ones that are not so happy to see you, but
really, does that happen?
Oh yeah, you still get, you know, especially in emergency, such a charged environment. You get every extreme, from people that are happy to see you, that people just like throw abuse at you, like left, right, and centre.
Yeah. Why did you want to do that?
Why do I want to do that? Why they want to do it?
Yeah, no. Why did you want to work in A&E? It seems like a chaotic place to work. It seems like a place where you'd I don't know, do your time for a couple of years and then move on to something else.
Yeah, I think it sort of self-selects a little bit, emergency. I originally never wanted to do emergency. I wanted to be an orthopaedic surgeon. Like, I'd gone through physio school, I'd done electives and stuff in orthopaedics, was really keen to do it, and then I just found that I struggled to sort of stand around in one spot long enough to do some surgery, you know. I don't know if I was like a bit fidgety or whatever. And then, I don't know, I just didn't really fit in, and I went off to do anaesthetics. So I thought, hey, that's quite cool. And then a couple of years of like that, I was like, oh, Jesus, that's pretty repetitive. Sorry, all the anaesthetists out there, but it's like, you know, little syringe, big syringe, little syringe, sleep, all right, you know. So
I'm sure you offended just a whole sector of your colleagues with that.
Oh yeah, I've got some good mates.
There's more to it than that, Inia.
Yeah, there's more. I've got some really good mates who are anaesthetists, so I rack them up all the time. You know, sometimes they're good at like lighting adjustments, you know, and things like that. But then I tried sports medicine. I thought, oh, yep, that sounds like a great idea. Go work in practice, do sports medicine. And then I struggle with that because, you know, I always have to be careful because I usually say most athletes are dicks, but not all of them. But there's some attitudes with young athletes and stuff that, you know, maybe need to be adjusted. But I just found I couldn't deal with that either. So I just ended up working in emergency. And it was always going to be a temporary thing. And then it just sort of temporised itself for about the past 12 years.
Yeah. So how does it work? 'Cause it's something that I don't have any idea about, and I'm guessing most people don't. So do you work like week on, week off?
No, so emergency is still one of those horrible specialties that no matter how senior you are, you still got shift work. So in Auckland, and most hospitals are about the same, there's like about 3 or 4 different shifts throughout the day. So there's the 8 o'clock crew that start at 8 in the morning and go through to like the 10-hour shifts to, you know, 6 at night. And then there's like a crew that comes on at 4 o'clock, and then there's a crew that come on at like, you know, 10:30 at night who go through to 8:30 in the morning. So there's all these overlaps, but you know, you got to be prepared to do shift work for the rest of your life, which is a bit of a downer.
Yeah, it's taxing on the body.
Yeah, it's super taxing. I mean, I got back from my last run on a Tuesday morning. I started nights on Thursday and didn't finish till Monday morning. You know, and it's just not the best way for you to recover or for you, you know, let's be honest, it's pretty shit on your body and the rest of it. So I think this is probably going to be my last year, maybe, of doing night shifts. Yeah,
what do you want to do next?
Oh, I'll keep doing emergency probably, but I'll just probably stop doing nights.
Yeah.
Obviously, you take a pay cut for doing that, and sometimes work won't be that happy with it, but they need doctors, and, you know, I'll just work on to day and afternoon shifts and just try to... I've done my time, I think, a little bit.
Yeah. Is the money okay?
The money's okay. I mean, I think, you know, I think a lot of doctors, for what they do, get paid quite well. I just think, you know, the cost of living, I suppose, is quite high. I think some specialties get paid better than others, which is probably a bit more historical.
Yeah.
Emergency is probably one of the lowest paid specialties, which I think is a little bit unfair considering like the stress and strain that they have to go through. And they've been expected to do more of everybody else's work these days. You know, so that may change, but who knows? Yeah,
and what would you say are the best and worst things about being an ED?
The best things, I guess, is like you're never going to be short of a job. Like you're never going to be out of work. Other specialties, you know, you're always trying to build up a clientele in private. And I've got a lot of mates who are like working really hard to build up that side of it because that's where they make their money. We're never going to be short of a job. If they start cutting other specialties out of things or, you know, advancing in medicine and things change, we're never going to be able to work. If anything, you know, it's growing every year with less doctors available. So that's probably the best, one of the things. The worst things, I guess, is you got to put up with different attitudes of people at different times in their lives. Some are really positive, some are really negative. Some people you can really help, which is quite good, you know. And other times you just come home from the end of the shift, you just want to have a drink because it's been shit.
Yeah, do you, when you're doing like one of those night shifts over the weekend, like, how do you feel before you go to work? Are you like, yes, I get to go to work, or do you have anxiety?
I do get a little bit anxious about going and starting onto your night shifts because you know it's just going to be crap. You know, like I traditionally do, like, you know, sort of those weekend night shifts. You know it's going to be really busy. You know, most likely you won't have a full complement of staff. Either there'll be some doctors that won't be there because they'll be sick, or they just haven't managed to fill the roster, or the nursing staff will be short-staffed. There's never fully staffed emergency department with every aspect. And you know, if there's some event on in town in Auckland that you're just going to get smashed with a lot of drunken, drugged up, abusive type people at times, or there's going to be a lot of traumas and accidents and other things that'll just fill up your department pretty quick. So, yeah, I always get a bit anxious. Once you start, you just get into it, but it's the build-up to nights are usually the worst. Yeah,
just because you know, I mean, just the unexpected is, you know it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, you know it's not going to be pretty. You know your brain's going to be a bit cabbage for, like, you know, 2 or 3 days after, and the stress that it puts on your private life and stuff, so...
Is this what God, you and your fiance Vicky, you must have, do you compare notes when you get home? Like, she's like, well, I had to put down a family's Labrador today, what did you do?
I like looking at her stories a bit more because she gets to work with, like, really fluffy patients and stuff, but and gets to do a wide variety of things from, like, surgery to other things, so that's quite cool. She just knows that, like, typically don't ask me anything that requires a really intelligent response when I'm on night shifts for a couple of days after.
Just because you're brain dead?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Is this part of the attraction of these runs? Just like being out there on your own, clearing your head, not thinking about anything, being on autopilot? Yeah,
I think it was one of the biggest aspects when I first started, was the fact that although they were physically demanding, it was like mentally, for me, it wasn't. I mean, you had that same aspect every day, like, you know, you slept, you woke up, you ate something, you went for a run, you know, you slept again. He just repeated the same thing over and over and over with a group of other people that wanted to do the same. You didn't have to think about everything. My routine was the same every day, and I just loved it because I could just literally at times switch your brain off, and it was great.
Yeah, I love that. I can see the appeal.
Yeah,
like a complete opposite to what you're doing in your job.
Yeah, like quite often people take their cell phones on their runs, or they listen to music and stuff like that. I will when I'm training, but quite often I go on these multi-day things, I don't take it. I ditch all that sort of stuff. And I just find it great. I can just switch off completely.
Yes. So when you work night shift on a weekend, like, we know about alcohol and how bad that is. What about drugs? What's the issue there?
Oh, yeah. Meth is the worst.
Really?
Yeah.
Still?
Oh, yeah, so much.
Really?
Yeah, GHB patients and stuff like that are quite easy to deal with because they're either asleep or they're awake.
What's GHB?
Oh, one of those party drugs that, you know, like a failed little anaesthetic drug that people take for recreational. You get your dose a little bit wrong and you're asleep rather than partying. So that's easy, you know. They're up, they're down, you watch them, you know, when they wake up and they've been waking up, they can go. But meth is just still huge. And, you know, obviously the aspects of meth, if they're coming to us, they're usually not nice characters.
Well, first of all, that's alarming. Like, I mean, I've got some friends that aren't saints, but the sort of drugs I'd see in my circles would be like MDMA or maybe some cocaine. But I don't know anybody at all that would still be on meth. Yeah.
So I mean, those sort of things we get rarely. You know, like it's pretty rare to get anyone to come in with like cocaine or something like that. You do get the occasional one, but it's pretty rare. And it might be that, you know, the drug that they think they're taking they're not taking, or it's dirty, or there's something wrong. But meth is just huge. And there's a lot of it, unfortunately, tied in with mental health patients too, and it's hard to differentiate, I guess, you know, which is due to the meth, which is due to underlying mental health. So we have to assess a lot of them. Police are reluctant to have them in the cells at times, and then there's just ones that do meth and do violent things and horrible things, and when they come in, you know, you can imagine, like, you know, some new grad female nurse trying to deal with some big methed up person. You know, it's not the best. Security's been one of the biggest increases in emergency departments in the past couple of years.
Oh, is that right? Oh, so there's security guards stationed there?
Yeah, so we've since I've been working there, it's great. It's transitioned from pretty ad hoc security to a pretty good security team now that are there full time. We have our own team.
That's terrible though.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It shouldn't be necessary.
Yeah, it shouldn't be necessary, but they're a pretty big group of guys and girls that are really quite professional. And obviously, you know, their main role is just basically, patient safety and staff safety. So we do the best we can, but you could always do with more, unfortunately, on the weekends.
So you get abused every other night?
Oh, yeah, pretty much. Like, you know, the things that you get called, and usually, you know, you try to de-escalate things and just to try to talk to patients to find out, you know, what's going on. And, you know, but there's a level of abuse that will just get so bad, and it's just like, okay, I can actually tell from that and from your experience that this person, you know, either this one's really unwell, and then we'll like sedate them and do whatever we need to do under sort of like a duty of care to make sure they're safe and they're okay. Or this one's just on drugs and alcohol and there's actually nothing else wrong with them and they can go away with the police or something like that. But that's something that a decision making that comes with experience, I guess. Yeah.
So you've been called the C word a couple of times?
Oh yeah. Quite a lot this week, actually, in the past week.
God, really? What do you mean quite a lot? What's a hectic week?
Well, you know, sometimes you'll have runs of it, you know, you'll have runs of days where you've got like multiple sort of patients of, you know, of dubious character that just want to come in and abuse people or get picked up from somewhere because people don't know what's wrong with them, you know, and drop them off at the hospital or over the police or the ambulance and stuff. And yeah, so quite a bit, you get runs of it. And then quite often being like, I suppose one of the male doctors that's not afraid to see patients in the hospital. If you've got a lot of female staff on, quite rightly, they're a bit scared at times to go see these sort of people, so you get asked to see. So I probably see a disproportionately large amount of drugged, drunk or violent patients just by the factor of I am who I am, I guess.
How do you not retaliate, especially like at the end of a long night shift?
Well, that's the thing is like you have to stay professional as much as you can. At times you just got to walk away and leave it, or at times you've got to sedate people and do that. The only times that it's really got physical is I've stepped in a couple of times when security for whatever reason aren't there quick enough. If they're somewhere else and like, you know, patients had to go, some of the nurses and stuff like that, then I've breached probably work protocol a couple of times by getting involved. They don't like us getting involved, and a lot of like doctors and medical staff won't, because they're scared of the ramifications through work, which I think is pretty poor, and work's just got to pull their head back in a little bit about that. Yeah,
they should have your back, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think if it's come to the point that a doctor's got to step in physically to try to protect one of the staff members, you know, don't drag them over the coals about it, you know.
What are some of the more memorable cases that you've seen? Anything springs to mind? Or do you sort of get immune to things after a while?
You do, but like most of the memorable cases are like I think of as ones that you can't say on the radio because it usually involves, you know, things in orifices and other stuff. But,
does that actually happen?
Oh, come on, yeah, it always happens, you know. Yeah, I'm just trying to think of a clean story, but being an emergency worker, we have a pretty perverse sense of humour at times.
Well, you need a black sense of humour, wouldn't you, as a coping mechanism?
You do. Like I think a lot of like you talk to emergency workers, nurses, doctors, whatever. They've got pretty dark senses of humour and stuff. And I think if you're out of you're extremely sensitive. You probably don't like it, but it is a bit of a coping mechanism. When you work in that environment, they never mean anything bad about it. It's just our senses of humour are just a little bit darker than other people's, I guess.
We need to. If you don't laugh, you're going to cry, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people like who don't have that sort of dark sense of humour, unfortunately, are really good stuff and they don't last there that long, I think. So it is a bit of a coping mechanism.
They just get chewed up and spat out.
Yeah. Like you can come on to the worst possible shift in the world, but you can look around and see other people, like, you know, other nurses you know that have been there for time, and they look and they'll see you and it's like, okay, sweet, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through because we're all just going to have a bit of a laugh about it, just, you know, because we can deal with that sort of. And just hopefully there's, you know, there'll be a time maybe when we can't, and that'll be the time to step out. But some of the young people or some of the new ones just unfortunately burn out. Or
So the orifice stuff.
Yeah, I knew this. I shouldn't have said the word orifice. As soon as you say stuff, it's like, Put it this way: there's always these things on social media and that, but the main thing is like nothing.
Like on TikTok and that.
Yeah, and it's true. Nothing accidentally slips up somebody's butt at 3 a.m. There's no such thing as a butt accident, you know. And that's probably the main takeaway message.
The funny thing for me is that by the time someone's like, okay, I have tried everything, I can't get this out myself, I need to get medical attention, they've been trying for hours.
It's true. It's true.
Absolute.
And the key is just be honest. Like emergency doctors and nurses, we have seen everything before. Literally everything, you know.
Were you there when the dude came in with the eel?
No,
this was a big public event, right?
This was a big public event. No, luckily I wasn't on that shift and I wasn't involved in it, which is lucky because there was so much ramifications from that. And I think we lost a very good doctor who was head of the department at the time, who literally fell on his sword a little bit and went back to the UK. I think he was always considering it, but I think that was the final straw. Because I think he was a bit of an scapegoat. Because photos or whatever of the x-rays or whatever were released into the media, and it probably wasn't the medical staff, from what I understand. So, but yeah, that was obviously that was the one that made the paper.
So when something like that happens, does everyone in the staff room talk?
Well, that's the thing, is like, you know, patient confidentiality. The official answer is no. No one talks about this. No, not whatsoever.
Good answer. But yeah, is there like a top 5 items?
Top 5 items. Well, I guess you've got to consider like being opposite the prison probably doesn't help, although you see less of that these days. But vegetables are usually one of the top items, I think.
Wow. Like cucumber.
Yeah, things like that. Yeah. Parsnips.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, the sharp end and then the fatter end.
I mean, the classic story is like a page that I had. This happened a long time ago now, and like some of this story will be fabricated, so I can't get done for it. But the whole thing is like you say, people have tried everything for hours, and a nurse came out of a room and she was really panicked. She said, "You've got to see this person. They're in a lot of pain. I don't know what's going on. There's these people. They're panicking." I was like, "Okay." So when a nurse comes, she says they're concerned. You go have a look. And I opened the door, and this lady came up to me, and she said, "Look, it's my fault. It's all my fault." I was just like, "Just calm down. What's going on?" And she said that her and her partner had been having sexy time in the morning, and this was at night time. And they'd tried everything to remove this item from her partner's backside. But they'd also given him a lot of laxatives and stimulants. So the pressure was just building up in this fella, you know, to the point that he was in excruciating pain. So, like, you know, after I, you know, had the compulsory little chat to them about everything, about like, it's okay, we'll sort you out and that. We got them up to, you know, theatre straight away because we couldn't get it out, and the problem was solved. But
how do you get it out?
Well, sometimes you can actually retrieve things in the emergency department. Like you can sort of like put rigid tubes in and put some air in, and if there's something to grab, you can pull them out. But like, obviously, a lot of these objects people put in their backsides are smooth, and you can't get a grip on them. And then obviously they've got to go up to surgery, and the surgeons can deal with it.
This is amazing. You've been a really big advocate over the years about men, and particularly young guys, like taking more care of their health and not avoiding warning signs and stuff. So what's some of the like standout stuff that you've seen from young guys, like failing to take attention, pay attention to their health?
I can't understand how some young guys will just put up with like changes in their testicles and stuff like that. You know, I don't know. Like, I don't look at my nuts a lot or every day, but I would notice if something was changing.
If you felt discomfort, yeah.
And definitely with the size of what some people, the times that they were weights, and I think it's just, whether it's a little bit of embarrassment or people just don't want to, but sometimes, especially young people, see them come in with some horrendous sort of things that have been going on for a long time, you know. And that's just a bit sad, you know, that people don't feel, I suppose, comfortable or confident enough to talk to their medical professional and come and see things, so...
Yeah, I wonder if that's like an element of like bravado as well. I was reading the Lance Armstrong, the cyclist.
Yeah.
He had testicular cancer, and in the book he talks about that and how like one of his nuts in particular was getting like bigger and bigger, but he was just used to like being in the pain cave, so he just sort of ignored it and carried on. And he's a smart guy. Yeah, surrounded by doctors and medical experts.
It's just like generally if something like, you know, changes in your body and it doesn't go away after a week or so or a couple of weeks, you know, and it's getting worse, it's not going to go away by itself, you know? And I think it's time to get someone to look at it. But then people do that for everything. People get like worse in their breathing or worse in their heart function, some of the other people. And they think, I just thought it was going to get better after a week or so, doctor. It's like,
yeah.
No.
And this is coming from you, like a guy that does these events and then pisses blood or has temporary blindness.
Yeah, but everything's like temporary. Like if I was still blind the next day, I'd see a medical professional.
Yeah.
If I was still pissing blood, the next day or 2 days, I'd go see someone, But, yeah. Then again, a bit of medical knowledge can do a lot of harm.
And how was COVID for you? Were you in the emergency department during the COVID years?
It was mixed. It was absolute crap in the end. But to start with, it was glorious because no one would come into the emergency department. So we'd go to work, and then there was all the shutdowns, and you could just get to work really easily. Like, there was nothing on the motorway. You'd go to work, and there was bugger all people showing up because they were really scared. And then the backlash of it was horrendous. We've never recovered. And the health system hasn't recovered. Just because of all the backlog of people that weren't seen by specialties, weren't seen in clinics, surgeries weren't done. If someone was waiting for their cardiac surgery during COVID and it got put off for like 18 months to 2 years, they're not getting any better. Their heart function's not getting any better. And there's all those people who've just backlogged up from specialties that haven't been able to see them into the emergency department because the GP primary health care system can't cope or deal with them. So our job, when I say it's getting bad, it's just got bad because of all the backlog and stuff is still going on and all the demand on the system's going on, so.
What about you from a personal level? Like how hard was that with all the PPE and there were super strict protocols, weren't there, with you guys? Yeah,
well, it was interesting. Like to start with, there was no PPE, and I think there was a little bit because there was none around. So, a lot of the knowledge or information we were getting about it was coming sort of secondhand from overseas. There wasn't really a lot of initially New Zealand medical-led information coming to us, and we were initially told by work, you don't need PPE. You don't need face masks, you don't need all this stuff. And they didn't want us wearing face masks because it would scare people. And this was when COVID was kicking off overseas and starting to spread. And then they just went completely the opposite. And I think it was once they actually managed to purchase some PPE. And we were like, literally head to tail, standing outside with a tent, blocking people out at the door and swabbing them and stuff and coming in. And it made your work days longer because you feel... Try breathing through like an N95 all through your entire shift, and it's actually quite hard or quite tiring actually.
Probably good training for altitude runs.
Yeah, good training for altitude runs. Yeah.
When someone dies on your watch, what sort of impact does that have on you, if any?
Well, that's a bit of a tough one, I guess. It's one of those things, I guess, that probably doesn't affect you as much now as when you were a younger doctor. You get a little bit used to it. You don't really get that many deaths on your watch these days, or not as much as the old days. But then occasionally there'll be something that will hit you maybe a little bit more, and it's generally because it reminds you of something, or they remind you of someone, or something like that. But quite often now it's just part of the job, I guess, to a certain degree.
Right.
It pays not to get too emotionally invested in some of these things because otherwise it will take too much of a toll on you. I mean, it sounds a bit callous if you think about it, but I think a lot of the young people coming in sometimes, they've got quite high ideals about how things will go, and their first couple of deaths really hit them quite hard, and then they come a little bit more resistance to it.
Well, you have to, don't you? Otherwise,
you have to.
Otherwise, you're just not going to last.
Yeah. And the main thing to think of is, or to remember is, if somebody dies in your department, it's nothing that you've done that's done it. They were always going to die, pretty much. Like medicine and stuff, and the way we do things is, so sort of good now. And there's so, with the really sick patients, you're never on your own. Typically in the hospital, there's a team of you that are working, and if they die, the way I look at it is they were going to die. It's not your fault, is what you got to remember. A lot of the young people will think it's partly their fault or something, I guess.
Shit, yeah, your mental health seems really good. Like, you seem to have like a real good balanced grasp on everything.
Yeah, on the outside.
Eh?
On the outside, you say.
Yeah. Yeah.
You never know what happens on. And
well, that's true. That's true. You don't, but you seem quite casual, quite nonchalant about everything.
I think I've got better as I've got older because I've just got a little bit more accepting and a little bit more
life experience as well.
Yeah, I think you get over that initial phase in your life where you struggle a lot. And there's always bad things that can happen in your life, but then you get to the point that, there's things that you can do, or you can do better, or you can fix, and there's other things you can't. And it's like you say, if something's really going wrong, it's like, it's not my circus, not my monkeys. I can only do what I can do. The health system drives me nuts at times, but then you just got to sit back and think, well, it's not my fault. The health system's broken. I can only do what I can do. And that's the way you
100%.
deal with a lot of things. In your life. If I want to be a more awake and more fitter and more healthier, do less night shifts. Go for a run more, eat better. There's things that I can change, and there's things that you can't. And I think that sort of helps your mental health quite a bit. That and the dogs. Taking the dogs out.
Oh, dogs are great, eh? God, we don't deserve them. Hey, us humans, we don't deserve them.
Yeah, in fact, I think we should go out and get another one after this, and I should have 3 dogs.
What about PTSD? No PTSD?
No, I don't. Yeah, no. Traumatic stress? No. I think probably the most traumatic thing I've had in my life would probably be, the passing away of my dad, and I sort of like think about that and still have to deal with that sometimes. And you think about that on your long runs and things about, what you could have done better and what, and that's probably the most thing that I worked for in my life. But in terms of work and military stuff and that, no post-traumatic stress.
Oh yeah, we haven't even talked into. Yeah, this is the crazy thing. You've had such a diverse and interesting. First of all, there's the running stuff, but also career-wise as well. Yeah, that's right. You were like a medic in the army in Iraq.
Yeah, so I was in the territorial force. It was back in the old days when you were at university. Did a couple of years of that, and then re-enlisted in my 40s because they were short of doctors for deployments. So re-enlisted and went through a lot of training and stuff again, and then deployed off to Iraq as a doctor.
So what did that entail?
To be fair, it was like a lot of sitting around and waiting, I guess, which is probably one of the main things the military does at times. It's the old joke, sit around and wait, but or hurry up and wait. But yeah, I actually enjoyed the lifestyle. I enjoyed the regular hours, funny enough, the meals and the exercise, getting paid the exercise. So I really enjoyed my deployment time. I didn't enjoy a lot of the bureaucracy and other stuff. I don't think the military does health well, but that's a lot of industries and stuff in New Zealand don't do health well. They could look after their soldiers better while they're in and when they're out as well, I think. But yeah, I really enjoyed my time.
So you were sort of in like an army base rather than like a war zone?
Yes, I was in an army base overseas, and it's all that stuff's been declassified now long ago. And I was deployed with a doctor from Australia who was sort of like a GP trainee. And most of the stuff we were doing was general practice type stuff, which he knew more of than I did, because he was a full-time, permanent military doctor. So he actually, unfortunately for him, did most of the stuff dealing with the rashes and the feet and all the rest of it. And my role there was, if anything kicked off, was to be the emergency resuscitative type doctor and run those sort of things. And those sort of things were few and far between. So a lot of the time I was just... almost like a bit of a pampered pooch. They took me for walks, fed me. There was always young people keen to go for a run or do something stupid. We'd come up with some stupid exercise things just to test ourselves out. And it was a great time. I enjoyed that. Yeah,
so enjoyable experience. Yeah, would you see more gunshot wounds as a medic in Iraq or at Auckland Hospital on an average weekend?
Auckland Hospital, hands down.
Actually, I was joking. Is that right?
Hands down, especially in the past. 10 years I've been working in emergency. 10 years ago, if somebody come in with a gunshot wound to Auckland Hospital, you would have every man and his dog down from everywhere in the hospital wanting to see it. Now, I had 1 week, we had 3. We had 3 people shot in a week, which is a high week for it and abnormal, but 3 in a week, it's like not everybody shows up anymore, They're like, oh, where is it? Get a scan of it. Where's the wound going? What's it, blah, blah. So, violent crime in New Zealand in terms of weapons has definitely ramped up in the past few years.
And like at past few years as in post-COVID or just...
yeah, post-COVID especially, yeah.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of... I mean, you'd know this more acutely than anyone, but it just seems like there's a lot of rage or anger around.
Yeah, it's a good way of describing it. There's a lot of hate in society, or people that just aren't moderating their behaviour or just will turn violent for the most little things. I mean, some of the stuff you see coming in, it's like you got hit or assaulted over that. You know, just completely. I mean, you used to laugh in the old days. The common answer was, oh, you know, some dudes hit me, you know, some random thing. In other words, this person got drunk, started a fight, and knew who they were. But now, literally, somebody might just be walking down the street, and somebody completely out of the blue will hit them or something, and they'll come in with serious injuries. It's not a joke anymore. It's actually what happens. If you go out in town, I think the most advice for most people is just keep an awareness of the situation and what's going on. Don't completely let your guard down when you go out on a night of the town. And that's a horrible thing to say because that's what you want to do, isn't it, when you go out? But no, so we see so much violence.
Does it put you off alcohol?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I won't go out drinking in town really. Like we'll go out, you know, really like for a restaurant or maybe have a drink or something. But I hardly ever go out into town for a drink or something. Or if you do, you're going with your mates. You're not getting, you know, like drunk like you used to in the old days. I just don't think it's worth it, personally.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, it's crazy that, eh? So my ex-partner, JJ, her brother got shot a couple of years ago, just in central Auckland, at like getting a kebab at 3 a.m, and that ended up getting a little bit of press because of JJ's profile. But the girl that Paul was with, she ended up like she's blind in one eye, and you wouldn't even read about it in the paper. Like it doesn't even get reported on.
Yeah, so we like all the ones that you see in the paper. For every one you see in the paper, there's probably another couple that just don't even make it. You know, there's people getting shot with homemade firearms and things like that as well. Just random drive-bys. People are literally standing outside in a group and somebody would drive by and, I don't know, either don't like the colour of their shoes or their jacket or something stupid like that, and we'll shoot them.
Yeah, is it usually gang stuff? Or is that just a sweeping generalisation?
I think there's undertones of it, but some of them just to be completely random, or it's, I don't know whether it's drug related or you just don't know. It's not clearly gang, some of them, but...
Wow. Oh, and you were a volunteer for a while on rescue helicopter. I found an old article online of some massive car crash you were involved with. How do you have time to volunteer for shit?
Well, that was back in the day where it was like, you know, when you were young and you're always keen to jump out of helicopters and do stupid stuff, you know, fly around the Wally Wop doing a nice red, you know, Santa suit. But it used to be, Westpac rescues used to be volunteer doctors. So they would pay the pilots and the crewmen and the medics and stuff, but the doctors were sort of volunteer. And we used to donate, you know, our non-clinical shifts and go work for them. So there used to be this massive pool of us that were doing it. So I got asked if I wanted to do it when I was younger. I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So did about 4 shifts a month. And we just went and hang out down the helicopter station. And sometimes you'd have no work and sometimes you'd be non-stop from start to finish. And then when it sort of all got grouped under, they were trying to centralise it all, they decided to move to full-time. And probably quite rightly, they sort of cut their crew numbers down and they came up with their own training program and things like that. So that's good. So I'm no longer required, I guess. It had all changed when I was off at military service. So I came back, had been volunteering for Westpac and then wasn't really needed anymore. So just moved on to something else. What
sort of jobs were involved with the helicopter stuff? Is it mainly car accidents or...?
Yeah, so you get some really, like, you know, simple jobs. You just fly over to Waiheke Island or Barrier or something after hours and you pick up somebody they're worried about chest pain or something, or pretty simple stuff. Or you'd fly off, and there was one we landed in the middle of like State Highway 1 north of the Puhoi Tunnel, I think it is, and the pilot did a really good job, like cut through the wires and sort of landed right on the state highway there, you know, and we had to like get the forest to pull a guy out of the car, and like we intubated him there in the middle of the state highway and flew him off to Auckland Hospital. So it's a very wide range of what you're doing.
Shit, it's been a hell of a life, hasn't it? And you're only at the halfway mark.
Yeah, hopefully. What's the life expectancy of a married male at the moment? Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, what is it? Your dad was 81. Was that a good innings for a Māori man?
Yeah, so he was one of 18 kids in the family, and he was the last one left. But he was the youngest, so.
But you're fit and healthy, and you're aware of what you should be doing. So, your life expectancy should be all right.
Should be better.
Yeah.
Unless the job burns me out, but I am pretty proactive. Like I've seen cardiac doctors, I've seen respiratory doctors and stuff with my family history, and I've seen a gastroenterologist, but I've driven that and had to drive that, and most of it through private because the public system wouldn't do it. But I've got risk factors, and I've gone and had them all checked, and I'm doing pretty well at the moment.
Oh, you sort of saying like the squeaky wheel gets the oil. You got to...
Yeah, the squeaky wheel or the wheel that's got some money, unfortunately, in New Zealand healthcare. Like, if you can afford private health insurance, then you can get whatever healthcare you need to a certain degree. And that's the way the systems is at the moment, unfortunately. If you're financially well enough off, then you're going to get all the investigations and stuff you need. If you're not, then you're going to have to wait for the public system. You could be waiting a hell of a long time.
What do you want to do through your 50s and 60s?
Keep running. I haven't given up on maybe doing some more crazier stuff or longer stuff. Stay fit. Working on a little side interest of just making some running clothing and stuff myself. And
that's great. You're wearing it now. Huntaway Run Co.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for the...
I got a pair of the shorts. The shorts are great. Yeah. So many pockets.
And it's always just it's just a side interest, things to keep your brain going. And then obviously I'd like to have more time to work on the scholarship and things like that and get other young people doing things. And then I suppose, it's probably about time to start a family.
How good is that the plan? Yeah, actually I've got a... Where's the photo here? I got a nice photo here of you and Vicky. It was very hard to find. Very hard to find a nice photo of you guys.
Was it? Oh yeah.
Yeah, one where you're not pulling a face.
Yeah. Well, I tried to ruin them.
Tell us about that young lady.
That photo must have been back in our younger days when we were fresh and sparkly and stuff and that. Yeah.
Yeah. How long have you guys been together now?
Oh, I'm gonna get this wrong and get in trouble. No, it's been about 2.5 years.
2.5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's great. As I mentioned before, she's Kanye's vet. She's bloody great. You found a good one there.
Yeah, and the family were really stoked as well. They were like, we always need a vet. I think it was the first thing out of my mum's mouth. Wasn't like, you're finally settling down and stuff. It was like, we need a vet.
Yeah.
Because we're all animal lovers in the family.
Yeah, and that's exactly what you want to do after hours. Yeah, more vetting. Yeah,
more
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's bloody great. Shit, this has been inspiring. What a life.
Yeah, well, you only hear the good stuff at times.
Yeah, no, just in terms of like what you're doing with your job and stuff as well. Like, I know it's not easy and it must be incredibly frustrating at times, but no, we appreciate what you do.
Cool, thank you.
And also the runs. So we're recording this in late July. What runs have we got to go between now and the end of the year?
So in about a week and a half, I fly off to Romania. So doing Ultra Race Romania. It's a sort of a family run race, which sounds quite nice over there. Then about a month later, I've got Grand to Grand in the States, which I've managed to get a cheap entry through Currans, one of the New Zealand supplement companies. And then after that, there's a small race in Australia, which is only 3 days, which is around 120 Ks. And then after that, we're sort of straight off to Antarctica. So it's all done in November, finished up by November.
Yeah, how good. And what surface are you running on in Antarctica? Is it like snow and ice? Or?
Yeah, snow and ice and that, yeah. So you run basically in your shoes and you have these little stretchy sort of crampons that you put over the top. You just run around in those.
And in terms of climate, like what will you be wearing?
Probably more than last time, hopefully. But generally it's quite dry. It's a dry cold. It's wind chill that will... which will catch you. So just warm outer layers.
And is that like a point-to-point race, or is it like just... I know there's a marathon there and it's just like kind of loops.
Yeah, so it's the same sort of thing because you can never get clearance, I guess, environmental clearance to do like a point-to-point race, and it's just too risky down there.
Yeah.
So typically you're on a boat and they will sail to an area. In the morning they'll set up a loop or a course that could be anywhere from 400 metres to 3 or 4 Ks, depending on the area. And while the weather's fine, because everything's weather dictated, you'll run as many loops and try to clock up as much distance as you can. Then they'll put you back on the boat at the end of the day and they'll go somewhere else. So it's quite good from that side. You get to see a few different areas of the South Shetlands and the main Antarctic shelf. And
you get to stay on the boat, or?
And you get to stay on the boat, which is a bit of a luxury.
You'd hate that, luxury.
It is a bit. I'd rather stay on the ice shelf than that, but apparently it's really hard to get consent.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of all the environmental concerns. So.
Shit. I wish more of us were like this, like into doing really hard stuff. Can it be learned?
Yeah, it can be learned. If you've got the desire to do it, you can always go out and do stuff yourself or with some mates. That's quite hard and, and a little bit crazy and sometimes reckless. But
yeah, there's a saying I like. It's if you know the why, it's easy to find the how. So what is it for you? What's the why?
I think part of it is just I want to every year, besides from doing things for charities and other stuff like that, I want to test myself every year to see where I'm at. You know, like, and that's a driving force for me. Like you want to push your limits. I would love to have found my braking limit when I was younger, and I just never did. And I think it's probably going to be easier to find it now as I'm getting older. So that's the hope. That's the driving force.
Just age catching up with you.
Yeah, age catching up with me will probably be the one that brings you in. You know, your mind was saying like, nah, just do it. Yeah, don't be soft, just do it. And then the body will crap out probably at some stage.
Yeah. So this podcast is sponsored by the Generate KiwiSaver scheme, and they've challenged me to give $20,000 to charity by spreading the word about the importance of KiwiSaver advice and planning for your future. So if you answer these 5 questions, Generate will donate $500 to a charity of your choice. Actually, should we in you a scholarship?
Yep,
$500
sounds like a great
towards a
idea.
scholarship?
Yep.
Yeah.
Sounds like
okay.
a great idea.
Okay. Are you a spender or a saver?
Spender.
No shit.
No shit.
Travel.
Yeah.
What's been your biggest money mistake?
Not starting saving earlier when I first started earning money. Yeah. From day one, I wish I'd put some money away.
Oh, same here. Even like in my 20s, you read about things like compounding interest, but you don't really understand it till you get older, and it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's that saying? Like youth is wasted on the young or something like that. Who do you talk to when you have questions about money?
Vicky.
Yeah, your fiancée?
Yep, she's smarter with money than I am.
What's something fun you can see yourself doing in retirement?
Or pulling a sled in Alaska, probably for about 1,000 Ks.
No, I said what's something fun you can see yourself. If you could pick anywhere to retire in New Zealand, where would it be and why?
Ooh, that's a really good one, actually. Down south, somewhere. Somewhere down south where I've got access to hunting and the great outdoors and that. I want to spend most of my retirement age driving a 4-wheel drive around shooting deer.
What do you love the most about being a Kiwi?
We're so far away from everybody else.
Jeez. Okay.
with all the shit that's going on in the world, when you look at other countries,
oh yeah, that's what you mean.
And
okay.
conflicts and other stuff like that. That's the only advantage of being all the way down here.
Okay. Oh, so you're okay being surrounded by other Kiwis, but just isolate.
Not too many.
Hey, well, this has been great. It's been really enjoyable. It's been in the calendar for months and months and months because you're such a busy man with your work and your travel. But I'm so pleased we finally made it happen.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Inia Raumati, thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks a lot.